So we're going to ask you questions about walking at night and the differences between um, gender and how people feel safe. First, could you introduce yourself and talk about what you teach?
Yeah. So my name is Dr. Kelli Boling. I teach social justice, human rights in the media, which is a freshman, sophomore level class in the College of Journalism.
Okay. And because anyways, I'm just going to ask you questions about talking at night. So one of the first questions is, how do you think students will benefit from the discussions in your class?
Mm-hmm. The discussions in my class are my favorite part of the class. You would think that students aren't willing to talk in in a room of 250, especially with their peers who they've never met, but they are. And when they start going and talking to each other instead of answering my questions, it's my favorite, right? When it's an actual discussion. A discussion-based large lecture class doesn't seem possible, but it happens every semester, and it's my favorite part. So I think having those discussions in class allows them to see the reality of the person sitting next to them. Most students don't realize that 25% of the folks in that class have probably been sexually assaulted. Most of them don't realize that 10% of the class has probably been impacted by the mass incarceration system in some way. If it doesn't happen to you, you don't think it's happening to anybody else. Mm-hmm. But when you start having those discussions in class and they realize, oh wow, this person 3 chairs over was assaulted, and I didn't think that happened in Lincoln. Yeah. It completely changes their perspective.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Why, along with that, why else do you choose to cover this type of topic in your class?
I like to cover all hard topics in my class. I say all the phobias and all the isms, because there aren't a lot of places where you can have these conversations, and we need to be talking about it. So if the class is, almost 50-50 from a gender perspective, half the class doesn't realize the lived reality of the other half of the class literally every day. Yeah. They have no idea that this is happening because that's not their lived experience. So, having those conversations is important. Having them in a room like that where you can see how many other students like you were taught this exact same stuff and have this exact same behavior. I love it every semester, but I also love seeing it on the faces of the students. Like, you can see the faces of the guys when the ladies start saying, oh, well, I have a baseball bat and I don't want to get my Achilles tendon sliced, and so I check for zip ties and I don't take things off my windshield. The guys are like, oh my gosh, like what? It's like the women live in an alternate reality. And you can see their faces of shock that they had no idea this is what we were doing.
Yeah, I also thought it was pretty shocking when I took the class. Yeah. Just because the guys, they do nothing. They do literally nothing.
Some of them wear noise-canceling headphones. Mm-hmm. Like, they're that unworried about getting attacked. They just walk around with noise-canceling headphones, while the women have 10 different safety measures that they're taking.
Yeah, it's like...
It's insane. We live in the same city.
We live in the same city on the same campus.
Yes.
Do you think campus is a safe space for students at night, and also what might make it better?
That's so interesting. So I will say I've never felt unsafe on this campus at night. By the time this semester ends, my class will be ending at 5:45 every night, and it'll be dark when I'm walking back to my car. I've never felt unsafe, and it's probably a 10-minute walk across campus. So, that doesn't mean anything. I don't change my behavior just because I don't feel unsafe.
Yeah.
I have noticed this semester something I've never seen before. There are stickers on the doors of the library when you exit
Yes.
that
Yeah,
says,
absolutely.
if you want a car, if you want an escort, call the cops right now, call them. I've heard that before. You can call us for escorts, you can text us, whatever it is you want, you can call us. But having it on the door, I think means something, right? If I'm about to walk out, I'm going to be more likely to call that number than I am to just remember it. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction. Normalizing the fact that people might want somebody to walk with them to their car and offering that service as they're exiting the door, I think is huge. I've seen other things where other groups on campuses will offer these as well. So call this number and we'll send somebody out to walk with you. I think too, in numbers, we always feel a little bit safer. So walking across campus with 3 or 4 friends instead of going somewhere by yourself, normalizing that, hey, let's don't go out by ourselves. Let's make sure we have a group of 4. Things like that I think are all helpful, but I did really like seeing those stickers on the door from the campus police.
So our professor talked about trusting the police on campus and how some students might not trust that. Do you think they are dependable, and also if students don't feel safe going to the police, where do you think they could go for that?
That's a great question. Just because of our society, that makes complete sense, that some students are not going to feel like they can trust the cops. I don't know that that's anything that our campus police have done or not done, but just as a society, a lot of folks are oppressed by that type of power. And so, or maybe they come from a city where the cops were specifically oppressive, or they've had a bad interaction with the cops for whatever reason. I would guess, at a minimum, 35% of the students in that class would not trust the cops. And I completely understand that. And so that's why there should be other support systems in place, right? So can the Multicultural Center also offer chaperones to walk with you? During COVID in New York, specifically because the Asian community was getting a lot of hate and getting harassed, they launched their own chaperone system. So you're calling someone who looks like you, someone that you're more willing to trust. So I think that's huge. That would definitely be something that if we had a centralized DEI office on campus that they could institute. Without that centralized office, it's going to be difficult to manage that type of service. So that's a loss. But I do think there are other organizations on campus that could offer it if people didn't feel safe calling the campus police.
Yeah, definitely. What are some examples or some more examples of protections that you've seen students carrying on campus?
Oh, wow. I've seen and heard of a lot. Personally, I took a personal safety type class where they gave us pepper spray that was made with like really strong peppers, supposed to be crazy effective. And also I had a key ring that was a metal bar with a point, and it had 2 points coming out of it. So a lot of folks carry their keys between their fingers, but this was a metal bar, so it's easier to grip, and the points were coming straight out of the fingers like that. I still have that. I don't carry it around in my keychain, but I do still have it. I took a class that showed us how to use it effectively. I also have a flashlight with a taser on the end. I mentioned that in class. My husband gave me that when I started working on my PhD because I took a lot of night classes. And so walking around, not this campus, but another college campus, I carried that regularly in my book bag. It's still in my car. I have seen people mention baseball bats. I've seen them mention that they would sweep under their car before they got in to make sure that there was nobody there that was going to slice their Achilles tendon. I've seen them mention other types of things they can carry, umbrellas, things like that, that look, not suspicious, but could do some damage if they needed to. So I think, I've heard a lot from a general safety perspective, people carrying the birdie keychains where they push the button and it's an alarm. I've definitely seen people carrying their iPhone on the SOS screen. I've heard of a lot and I've seen of a lot. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah. No, I was going to say we got a lot of survey responses about water bottles, like Stanley's.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, my go-to is probably that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a full 40-ounce bottle of water. That's
yes,
metal.
Yeah. Absolutely, that could do some damage. Yes. And again, when are you supposed to use that? And my husband says, if they get close enough so that you can use it, you use it.
Yeah.
That's the distance you're looking for.
Yeah. Why might there be a difference in gender, and what do you think we can do to fix that?
There's definitely a difference in gender. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we were raised, what we were taught as young women and young men. Men are taught, you can take care of yourself, man up. You don't need to worry about this kind of thing. You're a man, right? Somebody attacks you, you attack back. You're a man. I have a black belt in Taekwondo. I'm still scared, right? So I think I was taught at a very young age, you are more vulnerable as a woman, and if you don't take certain measures to protect yourself, that's just stupid. And nobody wants to be considered stupid because that's how the news report is going to be written, right? It's going to say she was wearing heels so she couldn't run. Her skirt was too short. She couldn't bend adequately to get into the car. She was wearing red lipstick. Right? That's how it's going to be written. They're not writing those things about men. So we read the news reports. We see how women are described after they're victimized. We are taught by the other women in our life, and men as well, at a very young age, you are vulnerable. You need to protect yourself. And that's ingrained. It becomes so natural, we don't even think about it. And that's why it's also shocking for women to have that conversation in class. Because, of course, this is what we do. How does everybody not do this? Yeah. Right? We assume it's so normalized that everybody's doing it. And then you're confronted with that level of data in a class, in a room of 250, and you think, wow, this is not okay. Why is there such a huge gender disparity in being able to walk at night? Right? I would never consider going out for a walk after dark. Never. Not around my neighborhood, not around town. It would never cross my mind to go out for a walk after dark. And if I suggested it, I know my husband would say, I'll come with you. Where do you need to go? I'm coming with you. Right? That's the way, that's just the world we live in.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My last question is, how will you continue to bring awareness to students and help keep them safe?
I have that conversation in class every semester. It's one of my favorite activities to do in class, and I do it every single semester. And I'm going to keep doing it until things change, because I think it's such an eye-opening activity to do. So I will always do it. I also always promote in class the 988 number for mental health. I promote carrying Narcan just in case you run into someone who is dealing with an overdose situation. I think we need to be more active in having those conversations, normalizing them, and talking about options for keeping us and everyone that we know safe. So I am a huge proponent of normalizing anything like that. Let's talk about going to therapy. Let's talk about taking meds when necessary. Let's talk about, keeping ourselves safe at night. Let's talk about Narcan. Let's talk about it all. Because if we're not willing to talk about it, then change is never going to happen.